I think that there's a fundamental hopelessness in South Africa, which is very unnerving, particularly for me as a young person, because I think the kind of like rainbow fantasy that foreigners enjoy when they go to Cape Town or Kruger is so clearly not a lived reality anymore, or never was, and no one can claim that.
I say to citizens, we've been through this and been through worse. People forget that between 1990 and 1994, more people died during that period than in all of apartheid. And whilst for a young person who's sitting going, but I wasn't there, I want to say to them that, but never lose your agency, never lose your power. When you go next year, and actually, every single period where we've all fell down, young people led the way. And I want to say to youth in this country, you are in the majority. We live in a continent where the median age is 23, which is cool. Secondly, your vote counts as much as your mom's or your dad's. And thirdly, you can lead. And like I saw young people do a Fees Must Fall march, next year is the Great March.
Maimane is running for president in a way that has never been done before in South Africa. He's back. For those of you who've been saying, where's he gone? What's he even doing? Is he even still in politics? Well, in the last year, he started a brand new political party, BOSA, or Build One South Africa. And they're running on 10 big ideas and a genuinely politically revolutionary strategy. And incredibly, just 1 month, 4 episodes after we launched this show, Maimane's people contacted us and said they wanted a sit-down interview. And so, this is that interview. So we're going to talk about what is so revolutionary about what is this new structure that BOSA has that has never been seen before in South African politics, and why does Maimane think it can give him enough strength to make a run for the presidency? I'm going to ask him about coalitions. What if the ANC dips beneath 50% and needs a coalition partner and they knock on BOSA's door? Would he take it? I'm going to ask him about if he might want to form a coalition with some other opposition parties, some of whom he has historically very frosty relationships with. And we're going to talk about why the 2024 coming election is so important, maybe the most important one since South Africa formed as a full democracy in 1994. So before we get into the revolutionary political structure, what are the 10 big ideas that BOSA is running on, why they want you to vote for them in the upcoming election? Number 1, they want to get everyone working. They want to put a job in every single home. They want to start something called National Civilian Service, and they want to fund and stimulate township economies. Number 2, they want to change the way that we do schooling with a school voucher program. 3, they want to punish corruption. They want to return money stolen by corrupt practices to the South African bank balance, and they want to set up specialized corruption courts. 4, they want to get communities involved in policing. They want to decentralize policing so that different communities can have different strategies for the problems that they are facing. 5, they want public-private community partnerships to essentially try and fix our failing infrastructure. 6, they want to do something called healthcare, housing, and income assistance for communities. 7, they want universal access to free Wi-Fi for the whole country. Hello, Elon Musk. 8, they want to do something called the Jobs and Justice Fund, which is a fund designed to give money to get poor people into the middle class. 9, they want to fix Eskom. They want to keep the lights on. Join the club. And 10, they want to bring in direct elections, change the way that we vote for rulers. So now you know what BOSA is selling. Here's an exclusive with its leader, a man who more than 3 million people voted for to be president in our last general elections, Maimane. Now, before I go any further, because I know fans of the show are going to say this exact thing, would you like a beanie? I've got a Kaizer Chiefs colored one for you. I know you've got a BOSA hat on.
Yeah.
Would you like it? You can wear it for
that'd
the
be cool
interview.
if I can wear it. Yeah.
This is going to be a big moment. Yeah. Like, a lot of people are going to take this very personally.
I heard about this beanie, and I heard about what happens in beanies.
I've also got the load shedding one. If we
get into the dark,
if the lights go off.
If it wasn't green, I'd wear the.
That's good. Well, thank you for wearing it. Thank you so much. So, Maimane, thank you so much.
I'll tell you what. I'll cut you a deal. We'll trade, right?
Oh, I have to be politically unaffiliated. What's about to happen?
But I'll give you one that just says vote. Doesn't have any logo. It doesn't have anything. All it says is vote.
I'll put it on. I'll put it on.
So we have a deal.
We'll swap.
We'll swap.
So Build One South Africa is super interesting. And I think a lot of South Africans actually don't understand it because your model reminds me of Emmanuel Macron in France's model. So the idea being that we now have this wonderful moment for the first time in South African history where the democratic system has changed. Individuals can run for political positions, not just political parties. But you guys have gone a step further and you've essentially said, if you would like to take your independent position and apply to become a candidate under the Build One South Africa umbrella political party. And I mean, I was really impressed by the website because it's not anybody can walk off the street, fill out a Facebook ad and become a BOSA representative. You've got to have 1,000 people signed up to support your candidacy. You've got to go through a quite rigorous testing structure, which basically shows that you stand for the same values as Build One South Africa, the same fundamental principles. That's really interesting. And it's never existed in South Africa before. Why do you think it will work?
Yeah, because I think firstly, politics has never been disrupted, and so we want to really disrupt it. And secondly, sitting in all of us, we all want to know the people we vote for. I think half of the reason people feel cheated by politicians because they feel like, dude, you showed up here, you promised us, you gave us food parcels, you did whatever.
Great t-shirts.
Great t-shirts.
Oh, great t-shirts. Ace Magashule had great t-shirts at that court appearance.
And then you left. And then you left.
Yeah.
And then we wait for you for the next 5 years whilst, in fact, the lights are off. All the sort of stuff, the sort of problems communities face up to. So one of the things that I've seen that citizens enjoy about the model is they go, okay, now we know that could be our guy. That's our guy.
Yeah, because you validate the community leader who's got your trust already and their own track record.
Correct.
I hear you.
So they say, that's our guy. Secondly, why it will work is because it's been done in other industries. So if you think about Uber, to your point, the Uber driver, no one can just become an Uber driver. They have to go through rigorous testing by Uber. They represent their brand. And at the end of the day, Uber has a way of rating the driver as you do as the citizen.
Yes.
And so the lower your ratings are, the less competitive you become.
Totally.
Democracy is exactly the same. So let's bring it back to communities, give them the right to choose and own the candidate. But let's also help them, right? Like you don't choose public leadership just on the basis of what it looks like or what that person does. You have to understand their ethics. You have to understand their values. So we kind of give a community language and an ability to engage the candidate. But we've also gone a step further. Not only do we train those people, we've written it into our constitution that if the community says, I don't like this candidate because he's no longer doing his job, they can trigger a way of being able to remove that.
How are you going to get people to vote for you?
I want to talk to them. I'm going to talk to them. It's like, how are you going to get a girl to date you?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but
you got to talk to people. But more than anything, you've got to show track record. And this is another thing that I think helps us sober our case. So there are a couple of things. One is I don't just talk, we do, right? So in the month of August, for example, and I've tried to do this as annually as possible, we try and support women business people. So that's why even today, soft plug,
good socks.
I'm wearing my pink veldskoen, if I'm allowed to say that.
Of course you are.
But I wear them because I support women entrepreneurs. So we often call out for people to say, send us your best business proposals. We funded some, help them create jobs, and we work. So we do.
Okay.
I'm in the process of trying to help the energy issue. We've set up a couple of businesses that help particularly people who are looking for energy programs for us to be able to partner with them. We've got, even in the technology space, I'm very passionate about ECDs. So even for my birthday, which was on the 6th of June, I asked all my friends, don't give me presents, give me money to fix ECD centers.
Oh, cool.
So we do all of that kind of stuff. So more than getting people to vote, I'm saying we're doing the stuff. So let's just not talk promises. Let's actually do the hard yards, show people that given our track record of non-corruption, given our delivery records on what we've been doing since, let's go out and do more.
Say the ANC gets 47 and BOSA gets 3. And they come to you and they say, hey, would you like to be our single coalition partner? Do you take it?
I say to them, here's the plan. You take the plan.
That's interesting.
If we get on the plan, then I would have served the country by going, the plan involves fixing Eskom. It involves fixing Transnet. It's about security. It's about education. It's about healthcare. If we don't agree on those things, what's the point?
But if the ANC essentially gets a horse trading buyer's market where there are 5 political parties, all with minimum 3%, and they can pick their coalition partner, can you afford to be that principled? Like, would you rather walk away because the best plan, in your view, is not what the ANC is interested in, because they can go to another political party who will be more pliant to them just to get into power.
Yeah, and they can do that.
Okay.
The greatest danger, because anytime you become a small player in a big coalition, is that you run the very significant risk not only of being swallowed in, but losing your entire identity.
Totally.
I mean, you can look at parties like Good and all of that.
Or the SACP.
All of those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So I am very cautious that it's not just principle for principle's sake. It's the cost for citizens, particularly citizens who have voted for you. And I'm always telling people that even if I was speaking to the president of the ANC going into a coalition, you don't want 3%. Because if you get a party that's even got 2% or 1%, they can sell those votes in an open market of corruption to try and increase their self-importance. It's dangerous. What I'm trying to do is actually build a 12%, which effectively is 2.2 million votes. Because if 17 million people vote on idols, 2.2 million is not a rocket science given technology and all of that. If you do that, that's a better margin to negotiate with than just 3%, because you'll have a revolving door of Al-Jamaa. Build big so that you have a contrast between here's what the EFF wants to do, here's what Build One South Africa wants to do. To me, that's what this election is about. That's the choice, really.
So the Democratic Alliance is the largest opposition party.
Yeah.
And they now have this problem where...
Up to date.
Yeah, to date. There's no election before this comes out. They're the largest political party, and they have an interesting problem where I think they fundamentally don't want to work with you or Herman Mashaba, because you two both left under fire and brimstone. It's very fair. Like, I think your direct quote when you left was, despite my best efforts, the Democratic Alliance is not a vehicle that can build a new South Africa for all. And Herman Mashaba left under very, very similar energies and has started Action SA. And so along with that is the fact that a lot of DA voters and maybe a lot of your voters and Herman's voters think that the EFF is a huge threat to South Africa. So that, in terms of personal dynamics, makes it very hard for you guys to work together, I would suspect. And from what I've seen of how the DA has responded to Action SA in Gauteng, it seems like their worst nightmare is for you or Mashaba to be successful, because it's humiliating. It's like the people who left are being proven right. Do you really think?
No, I mean, to be fair, the DA must get over themselves.
Okay.
I really think they must. I think that it was a grave mistake on their part to focus exclusively on being a minority party.
Because they gave up trying to be an electable political party, right?
Just become a minority party, focus on minorities. I think it was a grave mistake. But either way, that's what we have. But they must get over themselves. We have a country to build. And if I woke up in the morning and I wanted to harp up on issues of the DA and my past, then genuinely I shouldn't be in political spaces.
I agree.
I literally, if the DA came and sat here in front of me and said, let's talk about how we can fix this country, I will talk to them in the same way I'll talk to the Freedom Front Plus. I will talk to them in the same way as I will the EFF or any political formation in this country, because South Africa is bigger than everybody. And I often when I listen to the squabbles, this is the bit that pisses me off properly, is that when I listen to the squabbles, I think to myself, you lot are busy debating rubbish. You treated me like this. This is what, you didn't reply to my SMS. It's all rubbish, given the fact that the lights are off and the citizens are going in Tshwane, hey, we've got cholera because water isn't working. It's hogwash. Let's all get over that.
I wanted to ask you, because like these kind of like rainbow coalition pacts that people love to like throw around, often with political parties that are fundamentally opposed, right? So the ACDP is actually not very happy with South Africa's constitution because of their interpretation of Christianity. Freedom Front Plus would hemorrhage votes if they went with the EFF. The DA probably would too. And so a lot of people think like, none of these political parties want to work together at all. But much more than that, the big political parties, and we've seen this with the Democratic Alliance and the EFF to a degree, don't want the smaller parties to get stronger. I think like it's hard to imagine building a credible opposition alliance amongst political parties, considering all these dynamics.
Of course, but and I want to say this: what's been the most working coalition in the last 30 years, or as we head into 30 years? Actually, the most working one has been the ANC, bizarrely.
Yes.
They're a coalition of some sort.
Yeah.
You've got COSATU.
Correct.
You've got the ANC. You've
Correct.
got the SACP. They've all come together.
That's true.
How do they... You may not agree with them why they exist. You might say they exist to loot. So they get together and they must stick it out, right? Because, we've got to loot more. But either way, they've stuck together. And I think there are some lessons there that we can pick up. The first lesson that we can learn is that they've been able to put one brand on the ballot.
That's true.
And that's a debate that I think any coalition that's been pre-negotiated has to consider. The second is the leader or the president of the ANC is the internalization of the contradictions.
I hear you.
And by that, what I mean is that person must be able to recognize that if the trade unions want above inflation increase, and say, for example, the SACP wants cabinet positions, and say, for example, the body wants growth and business and all of that,
Got to balance
that
it.
leader has to figure out how to harmonize and respond to
The
that.
middle path, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And furthermore, they are then the face of all the organizations. They become the principal who we all say, they did it pre-94. Mandela was not the only one who fought for freedom.
Exactly.
You had Ahmed Kathrada and many others who spent nearly comparable times, Governor Mbeki and so. But it was become the issue of bring back Nelson Mandela. So I think one of the things, because I promise you now, we can run a poll on this thing and ask people, how does the president become elected? People don't know the step-by-step mechanisms of that. What I would recommend that we do is, if we set up something, we agree on something, let's agree also on the leadership and the presidential candidate. Because I think if we asked voters next year to say, here's your choice, Steenhuisen, Ramaphosa, Malema, Maimane, whoever, those are your choices. Then suddenly it sobers up, because actually the executive has got incredible power.
Totally.
And then you could say to people, go vote in this interest, because that's who you'll get as your president. And I worry that some of the configurations that have taken place have a subtle underpinning that goes, if I vote this way, I'll get that one as the president, and I'm not sure I want that.
Totally.
Which will cancel out the actual principle of the coalition.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a leader of this opposition alliance who could comfortably, because South African people who are dissatisfied with the ANC then cattle shop between different political parties about who they'd support.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised, for example, if someone who chose to vote for you also were partially saying you're the best of the not Malema, Steenhuisen, Mashaba, for example. And so for then, it would be very difficult for you to then say, we're going to pick whoever name as our unity consolidation candidate to rally behind.
What I'm saying is, if we were to spend time doing that, that's what we've got to focus on and learn the harsh lessons that say people follow people.
What's the chances of that ever happening?
I think it's probable. I think that...
You think that all these different major political leaders, aside from you, with their own self-interested kind of positions and their own voter bases, would be comfortable doing that?
I really think it's the pathway forward. And even if you may not get a single entity on the table, let's agree on the message.
Okay.
Because here's the danger. Like you used a very good example earlier on, and I've spoken to the leaders about it. I said to them, at the end of the day, it's not just your own selfish interests. It's the fact that in each political party is this idea that political leaders go to bed worried about the most selfish voter. So I use real examples. An IFP voter would think, I want to preserve the Ngonyama Trust. But I know for a fact that maybe the DA may think that's a bad idea to have the Ngonyama Trust on land.
That's true.
So that voter thinks, if I vote for this thing, I'll get a DA telling me I don't have my Ngonyama Trust anymore.
Yeah.
And there may be a disincentive to voting. Or the Freedom Front Plus might say, I want this language to be supreme, and then another voter might say, no, I actually think all 11 must be in universities or whatever the case might be. So all of these contradictions exist, and that's why I'm saying we've got to get in the room, and at least, even if you say, I'm not settled on this issue.
You commit on the principles.
I can say, maybe it's not the most central issue going into an election, so I'm willing to park Ngonyama Trust. I'm willing to park language and Stellenbosch. I'm willing to park all of that. But here's what we will agree on. Here's what safety looks like. Here's how, all of those things.
So who needs to be in this pact, in this new plan for it to be effective?
I think the UDF gives us a very good model, and I know young people might be wondering what that's about.
I know who that is.
but let's bring opposition parties, but let's not them only. Let's bring civic society. Let's bring I think the public servants also want to be part of a new plan going forward. So that's who I would broaden it, because when you just leave it to the political party space, it's too narrow, and I think citizens are kind of themselves put off by politicians, and I'm sympathetic to that. Bring on more people. There are voices. I have huge respect for people like Imtiaz Suleiman, who is
Lots
doing
of people want to vote for Gift of the Givers.
doing an incredible job in the country. But whilst Imtiaz doesn't want to run for public office, but he has a voice about what this country must be. Yeah. Why can't he contribute to the conversation? He may not end up in parliament or whatever, but his ideas are good.
So that's the issue with Musi Maimane and his new party, BOSA. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, all the fun things. And if you want to hear the full interview, it's on podcast on our Spotify. Just search The Issue with Dan Corder. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode.